Welcome everyone to another episode of Hypnotherapy Reflections from Training to Practice. Today we have the lovely Susie with us, and Susie qualified as a Solution Focused Hypnotherapist at our school in Chelmsford in Essex, and she did very well as always. And we're going to explore Susie's journey, the unique insights, both personal and those gained through training with CPHT, and the powerful impact of Solution Focused Hypnotherapy. So get ready for another inspiring conversation, highlighting the transformative power of Solution Focused Hypnotherapy. So before we go any further, Susie, do you want to introduce yourself properly and say hello?
Hi, thank you for having me, Gary. Yes, my name is Susie Long. I'm based actually at the moment in Spain. And
Oh,
I indeed did all my training in Essex, and I work remotely with my
yeah,
clients in Essex and in fact all over England
yeah.
and some in France. So
Fantastic. So are you living in, start again, are you living in Spain right now?
yes, we are
Wow.
in Spain, yes.
So you've got a truly global aspect of it. And even though you're still working with people who you're connected with through the UK, you can sit in the beautiful sunny, although it's really sunny here today in Peterborough. It's about 23, 24 degrees in Peterborough right now. So yeah, you've got all the Spain and all the sun's here. So lucky you, but we get in it for a whole week, not as long as a whole year like you will. What I want to ask you to start with, even though you've massively expanded, to this lovely online set of clients all over the place, what drew you to train as a solution-focused hypnotherapist?
Well, to be honest with you, the answer is in the clue, solution focused. I had spent a bit of time doing counselling courses and counselling people, and also doing life coaching, and it was all very problem focused, and it was
Yeah,
quite an exhausting job.
all
And
right.
this is what I was looking at. And I thought, how can I do what I'm doing, which is help the people I want to help, without feeling so exhausted, basically.
Right. And
So
that's worked well by the sounds of it.
really well. Yes, really well.
So with your background of working with people, both in life, being counselling and being that therapist who really wants to help people, can you go back to that first day of being on training with CPHT and what stood out for you that when made it real for you, or just stood out for you, or maybe even graded a little bit for you considering your previous training?
Well, I decided to leave my previous experience at the door because I really, really wanted to learn. And there's nothing more obstructive to learning than holding on to facts and figures that you're
Yeah,
all. So I had to blank my mind almost. And I think the most influential part of the training was the conversation centered around the brain. And that was for me like a eureka moment.
wow.
Yeah, it was
So you
really
had that light bulb eureka moment.
in my own brain. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
in that first day.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
this is real, I thought.
Yeah.
I was amazed, shocked, and delighted in measures. Yeah.
So what would you say is the most rewarding part of your job, both when you was working with counselling and now solution focused approach? What would you say the most rewarding part is?
Well, when you establish what B is, so we know that we're all at A and we know that we want to get to B. Once we've established what B is, and then through the therapy, you start to notice that you're getting closer to that B. And that for me is the most exciting part, when people are doing things that they don't normally do because they feel bolder, braver, more courageous, or just noticing that they are noticing that they're doing the things they wanted to do, albeit small things, but they're doing them. And that is so rewarding and so exciting for me.
Wow, that's a nice way of putting it, how watching people go from where they are, maybe at A, in a bit of a pickle, to B, where they're the best version of themselves. So that's fantastic to hear. So what are probably some of the most common, or one or two of the most common issues clients come to you with, and how does solution focused hypnotherapy work for them?
Well, I have a lot of people that have anxieties about doing specific things. Like, for instance, recently I experienced somebody who was really frightened to drive on their own somewhere new. They could drive to work and back, that wasn't a problem, but going somewhere new. And through a series of sessions, it may have been sessions with this particular individual, I noticed that they were saying, oh, and I popped to such and such a. And I thought, do you normally go there? No. Okay, brilliant. And what did you do when you got there? And I kept them thinking in their intellectual mind about all the exciting things that they were doing when they were stepping outside their comfort zone. And all of a sudden, this person came to a session and said that they had gone and bought a new car, which involved on a train to somewhere and then driving the car back.
Wow.
And I was astounded, and I just celebrated that client and said, do you even know what you've done? And there was a great amount of giggling going on, and it was, yeah, actually I do now.
So that's really interesting, because we know how that affects the brain. How do you explain that to the client? Because they've gone from being terrified of, say, driving to buying a new car and driving it home.
Exactly.
What changes has happened in the brain for them to be able to do that?
Well, I explained to them that the patterns that they've created for themselves, which we all do, very small things, are basically stored in the hippocampus. And when they store these things in the hippocampus and something happens to kind of like remind them of that pattern, they just go to the pattern. So they tell themselves basically that they're frightened of doing something, and they don't think outside of that. They just continue to believe that they're frightened, and it defines them too. I don't do that. I often, oh no, I don't do that. And I think, well, what if you did? You know? So when they actually start to relax and not focus so much on what they don't do, they start to think about what they do want to do.
Fantastic.
And then people doing those things and think, well, if they can do those things, why can't I? And being relaxed and not relying on those oh so familiar patterns that are already there in their brain, they can actually say, well, what if I did do that? What would happen if I did? Well, I'd have a new car, I'd meet some new people, I'd see some new countryside, and so on and so forth. And so eventually the visualization of doing something just takes over, and you make that the norm instead of
that creates new patterns, will overwrite the old ones without ever having to worry about the old ones.
And it's not even forced. It's just being relaxed.
How lovely.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it is lovely. And that's what gives me such a lot of joy when I see people do this.
So you're living in Spain. Everybody's a little bit envious when they watch this video now. And, you know, that's very different from where I met you in Essex. Very different, I'd say, from Essex. How do you look after your own mental well-being, your mental health, when you're spending so much time looking after other people's?
Well, that's a really good question, because I've had to do a couple of rain checks for myself once we got to Spain, because we were so busy settling into our new home, you know, from buying it to furnishing it to, and then dipping in and out of a quiet corner so that I can service my clients. But I did notice that I was getting very tired again. And a couple of times when I was working with clients, I thought, you know, I need to have some me time. So I went back to basics, walked the dog along the beach first thing in the morning, little things like that. Start to notice what's been good to myself, you know, telling these people, notice what's been good. And then I thought, well, I'm not doing that. Gosh, I need to get back into this. And I've got no excuse for it. I know what I'm doing. So I started to keep a journal, a list, if you will, of what's been good. And in the evenings, my husband and I used to sit down, and it had been a really tough day, you know, like a delivery didn't turn up of our belongings or something like that. And I said, yeah, but what's actually gone well? And we looked at each other blankly, and I knew what I wanted to say, but I needed him to do it as well. Well, we did have a nice lunch. We had some nice tapas, a little bar we found. Yeah, that was nice. And before anyone gets jealous, it is just a little bit of food. It's not like a great big meal.
No, it's just like everybody's now envious that you're swanning around Spain, having nice lunches and going for walks on the beach. You know, I live 70 miles from the beach and I'm now feeling really envious.
I bet you've got lovely woodsides to walk through, and that's just as wonderful, isn't it? Like
it is. But what you're saying is you had to walk the walk. It's one thing delivering our therapy to people, but I think with Solution Focused Hypnotherapists, and I find it all of the time, we become a solution focused person. We walk the walk. Everything we ask our clients to do, we know we do ourselves, and that helps us be the very best version of us. So we help clients better to be the best version of us. We're almost leading by example, a good role model.
Exactly. And the other thing that I did in that space of time where we were just not doing very much of like normal living life, but just existing from, you know, this job to that job, and I had the clients in between, was to make sure. So I rocked up to supervision so that I had a sense of belonging to a bigger part, something else. It's like belonging to something that is more than just you sitting in this room talking to people on the computer. And that really helped me. Even though I didn't have many questions, it was just good to hear other people's.
So one of the things I want to ask you, you said at the end of the course, I remember that the course was so amazing, but you've been working in counselling and working with people. How's this course, you attending the CPHT course, changed life for you?
Well, I think being with the group of people that I was with helped, and actually physically going to the course every month, that really helped me. A lot of the courses are just dip in and out, one day here, one day there. But when everybody is coming together once a month, that really, really helped me, because I knew that everybody was in the same boat. And the interaction between myself and my colleagues on the course, and the different supervisors that we had over the course, it just rounded it up beautifully. And the college that we went to as well was beautiful, and it was a nice place to go to, and just everything about it. It just I miss it. I kind of miss it.
We get that a lot. Because what difference did the content of the course make to your life? Being, you know, the way we train, but also the content of what we train.
Well, the content was good because it was in good sizable chunks. So you really had time in that 4 weeks or 3 and a bit weeks to actually really focus on what you had been told, review the notes that you'd made yourself, and the content that which you could download off of the sites. I also started to manage my marriage differently. You know, not that there was anything wrong with it, thank goodness. No. I'm very blessed, but I did notice there were times when I was asking questions and not actually stopping and listening to the answers. And I thought, well, that's not very solution focused, is it, Susan? I'd say to myself. And then I'd sort of like think, well, how would I like that to come across? How do I think that person actually wants to hear that? So I did change my attitude a little bit to my immediate family. And a couple of times my son clocked me and said, "Are you trying to therapize me?" I said, "No." No, I'm not. I promise I'm not. But no, it did make a difference to me. And my husband had some counselling before, because he suffered a very serious illness, and he also suffers from profound loss of hearing. So I had to think outside the box a little bit more as time went on during that course. And somehow I managed to incorporate what I was learning to make myself better understood, to, you know, he was able to support
Mm.
me better because he
Yeah.
understood what I needed. And yeah, and it was really good for me
So
personally.
I've got a couple of last questions for you. And I think the one I'd like to ask is if somebody else was listening to this podcast and they went, could I do this too? And they asked you, what would you say? Could I do what you do?
I would say quite simply, try it, go. It will change your life. You
Mm.
said that to us when we first joined, and I thought, yeah, all right then, go on then, change my life. And it just did. It was a combination of the content, the tutors, the other colleagues, but it did change my life. And if anybody's thinking, should I or shouldn't I, it's probably the best investment you can make in yourself. Even if you decide not to practice,
Yeah,
you will learn so much about your mind, how your brain works, and how you really are. It will
yeah,
change so much.
that's fantastic. So
Hmm.
last question I got for you. If you were to be able to have any client you ever wanted from history, dead or alive, any famous person, and you was able to give them hypnotherapy to help them be whoever they wanted to be, who would you choose? Who the person you'd like to have sitting working with you?
Let me think. I would love to work with Lewis Capaldi.
Lewis Capaldi.
Yeah,
That's the singer, isn't it? The
yeah,
Scottish, the young lad
yeah,
with terrible anxiety issues.
yeah. I would love to
Wow.
work with him.
Why
Mm.
would you like to work with him?
Because I think he's got a very gentle soul.
Mm.
I think that he is very misunderstood. I think his talent is so much bigger than him. And it's kind of like everybody's wanted a piece of him.
Mm.
And I think it's left him so depleted. And I would love to see him just relax and get back to what he does so well. And that's to bring us the music that we all love.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
That's a great thing to finish on. So, Susie, to finish off, just tell us if somebody wanted to work with you or can contact you, how would they get hold of you? What's the best way of getting to find out who you are, what you do?
Okay, so I'm on the hypnotherapy directory. I'm also on Susie. They can email me at susie@susielonghypnotherapy.co.uk. And my website is susielonghypnotherapy.co.uk. And I can also be found on the Association for Solution Focused Hypnotherapy website. And I'm also registered with the NCH and the
Yeah.
CNHC. I'm
So
a
you've got
registered member with them
all the
as well.
letters after your name then, showing you how all your credentials, and people will contact you, I'm sure, because it's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. If anybody's out there interested in training with CP, you can just pop onto our website, cpht.co. And that will enable you to discover all the schools we've got around the country, and particularly the one in Essex where Susie trained. So thank you very much, Susie. Thank
You're
you everybody
welcome.
for listening.
Thank you as well. Thank you for asking me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.